Hello YouTube, it's Birdo Prey 5, and we're here for Star Trek Discovery, Season 2, Episode 13, Such Sweet Sorrow. And it is such sweet sorrow when the previously on returns us to that most awful of awful short track, the first short track, Runaway, which I previously said, and I still stand by to this day, was perhaps the worst piece of scripted entertainment I had ever seen. That is perhaps until this episode. Oh man. Why Discovery? Why couldn't you just let that stupid queen, who's a biological sister of her home planet, why not just let that whole story arc die? Obviously someone was either high or getting back at you. You didn't realize you were being pranked by someone with a bone to pick when they wrote that storyline. It makes no sense. And that is the theme of Star Trek Discovery, and never before has it been more obvious than in Such Sweet Sorrow. Nothing makes any sense, and it is not only insulting us as viewers, it is wasting our time. And time is the only resource we cannot get back. Even oil can be synthesized if it had to be. Okay, nothing in this world is truly impossible to recover except time. You know it's not going to be a great episode when Sarek is sitting on a beach on Vulcan, the desert planet of Vulcan. Now, of course, we saw this season has forests, so of course Sarek is sitting at the beach. Amanda is being a good Vulcan human wife, bringing Sarek some type of tea perhaps, and Sarek is meditating when all of a sudden his eyes open and he says, "Michael!" His Qapla reached out across the light years and realized that Michael was going to leave, basically. Not kill herself, just leave. So we've again doubled down on the long-range Vulcan telepathy Qapla Skype that should have been left in Season 1. Just let these things die. Acknowledge they were mistakes. Acknowledge they were mistakes. Never bring them up again. No. You had to do it. You had to do it. So this episode also, at the end of the last episode, Michael Burnham, of course, made the suggestion. And why did it have to be Michael? That should have been Pike. Pike should have made that decision days ago. But Michael finally makes a decision. We have to destroy Discovery to stop the sphere data from getting in the hands of Control. Otherwise, Control will become sentient, even though clearly Control is already sentient. No sense. Again, makes no sense. So we get the beautiful shot of the Enterprise pulling up next to Discovery. In fact, Discovery, for some reason, is doing this barrel roll over Enterprise. I think it's just to hide how awful and hideous the Discovery looks next to the Enterprise. So the Enterprise warps in. Discovery barrel rolls over it because, of course, it would have made too much sense for the Enterprise to just navigate next to Discovery where they need to be. And they're going to evacuate Discovery to the Enterprise. So what do they take? Escape pods, transporters, cargo transporters? No. No. Apparently, Discovery is the only ship in the Federation equipped with, what did they call them? Equipped with, apparently Discovery is the only ship in the Federation equipped with evacuation corridors. I mean, what the hell are evacuation corridors? These magic tubes that come shooting out of Discovery that just happen to line up to ports on the Enterprise hull. Perfectly click in on the Enterprise. They are perfectly horizontal. It's not even that they're on angles or something. Like, whoever built the Discovery and the Enterprise, even though they use nothing else in common, different turbo lifts, different everything. Oh, the bridge is a bit in common, but everything else seems to be different. They happen to know exactly where the ports are on both ships so that they could very quickly evacuate one ship to the other. Absurd thing in all of Star Trek. So we get a scene. We get the scene of Pike getting to the Enterprise, and that was pretty cool. We get our first shots of the Enterprise. We actually, when Pike gets onto the Enterprise, he goes right for the turbo lift. And for all of the retcons they have made, they have kept the Enterprise turbo lift with that weird thing you have to put your hand on, and you used to have to turn it, and that would make the turbo lift go.
Ready?
You'd turn it, you'd
Deck
say
21.
deck 1 or deck 5, and it would take
Deck
you there.
21.
And we even saw it in Star Trek Deep Space
I said
Nine
deck
Trials
21.
and Tribulations.
Maybe if you said previous.
That
What's wrong with
Miles
this?
and
I don't know anything about this time period.
Bashir, I believe, didn't know how to use the turbo lift until one of the Enterprise crew came on and touched it, and they were like, "Oh, that's how you do it." And then they realized it. So they kept that for reasons, even though apparently no other turbo lift in the Federation has that limitation. And again, this was right after a major refit of the Enterprise. So, I mean, Discovery's turbo lifts don't have that feature. Of course, they changed it, because not do you have to hold it to move, because that might have looked stupid. I don't know. It might have looked too original. You just touch it with your hand. You touch it and now say deck 1, and it takes you to deck 1. So I guess all the other Enterprise people that hold it this whole time just hold it because they've got nothing else to do with their hands. Michael Burnham is doing a personal log over video of everybody evacuating from the Discovery. And Michael Burnham says, there are 7 signals, but we've only seen 4. How do you know there are 7 signals if you've only seen 4? The season literally started out saying that we saw 7 signals. But why would you say you've only seen 4? Clearly there had to have been 7, because you guys counted 7. If you didn't see 7 signals, you wouldn't know that there were 7 signals coming, right? So don't tell me you've only seen 4. You've seen them all. No sense. No frickin' sense. She also says, and we have a time crystal we don't know how to use. Which, by the way, the time crystal is now blue. And Michael is in front of the time crystal, and Pike comes and says it's time to leave. Michael, of course, is like the last one almost on Discovery, and it's time to bring the time crystal to Enterprise. You would think that was the most important thing. That would have been taken first. No. So, and then Pike leaves Michael to let her take it alone. I guess he knows he can't stay. You don't want to stay around Michael. You might die. So how does Michael pick up the time crystal? Does she carefully place it in a in a box or something. No, no. She deliberately grabs it, knowing full well, she must have known full well that was going to let her see the future, because I guess Pike had told her what happened. Of course, her future isn't set in stone because she was not told by the Klingon timekeepers that her future was set in stone. And she sees a very bad future. She sees the upcoming battle. She sees actually people are fighting on Discovery, so that already we know that Discovery isn't about to be destroyed. And the Enterprise looks like it's done. It's got a unexploded photon torpedo sticking out of its primary hull. And this photon torpedo is like 50 times bigger than a photon torpedo should be. And that's not an exaggeration. Pike and Saru are on the bridge of Discovery. They're the last people to leave the ship. And of course, they have to set the auto-destruct. And what do all Star Trek fans want to know when the auto-destruct is set? We all want to know it. Every Star Trek fan. We want to hear them say the codes. We want to hear them identify themselves to the computer by voice and tell the computer their passcode for self-destruct. We've heard it in all the other movies and the other series. It's always been voice-activated self-destruct. It's a little bone. Throw us that little bone. They won't. They refuse. We don't get a bone. Instead, we get Saru and Pike putting their handprint onto the ops panel in Discovery, and the two handprints trigger a remote auto-destruct. A remote auto-destruct that they build up and waste so much time on when we all know damn well Discovery is not blowing up. We know it's not going to work. There is no drama here, no matter how much they want to pretend there is. And just to make sure we know it's not going to work, Pike and Saru start walking to the Enterprise, and Saru is assuring Pike that he's done everything and nothing will go wrong. The ship will go down as it should in honor. Nothing can go wrong. And of course, when somebody from Star Trek Discovery says nothing can go wrong or anything is certain, we now know it's not certain. We get to the Enterprise bridge. For a lot of people, this was a big deal. We wanted to see what did the Discovery people do to the Enterprise bridge. It was something they left out of everything until last week. We got our first sneak peek at the Enterprise bridge. Yes, it took some cues from the original TOS Enterprise. The seats were decent. Some of the stations, yeah, they did a little homework, but it is not recognizable as the bridge of the TOS Enterprise. That said, it is a beautiful bridge. I will give them that, okay? And while there was no need to update the Enterprise, because the Enterprise still looked excellent in Deep Space Nine, and it still looked excellent in Enterprise, in the Mirror Universe episodes. Well, that was a different Constitution class ship, but the ship still looked good. There was no reason to upgrade it. If they wanted to get old fans back, they could have given us the original Enterprise ship, and of course tons of people would have been just loving to see it, but no. So they want to give us the updated ship. Fine, whatever, so they can sell another Eagle Moss copy of it, I guess. It was a pretty ship, okay? It was. The outside of the ship was excellent, and the bridge was pretty good. I mean, everybody agrees it was a lot better than the Enterprise from the J.J. Abrams movies. That Enterprise, I dislike it more and more every time I see it. Honestly, this Discovery Enterprise, I like it more and more every time I see it. Nothing like the original, grant you, but a good ship in and of itself. That is about the last good things I've got to say about this episode. Also, we get about 60 seconds sprinkled throughout the episode of starship porn. Okay, like just great shots of the Enterprise mostly, and sometimes Discovery, warping around, moving past each other. Beautiful, beautiful views. They only total a minute, but they feel longer because they're the only thing you have to grab onto to not want to bury yourself in a hole in the desert while watching this episode. Who's on the Enterprise? Who is on the Enterprise? Who is in command of the Enterprise? Is it number one? No, it should have been number one. We've been promised number one. All we got was her eating a cheeseburger at the beginning of the season. Finally, number one. She should be in command of the Enterprise. No, it's Admiral Cornwell, whatever the hell her name is. Where the hell did she come from? How did she get to the Enterprise? Why is she wearing a Discovery uniform? Why not change into the newer uniform, Admiral? Details. So yes, Admiral Cromwell, whatever her name, she is the one who returns command to Captain Pike, who is now back. Of course, number one is there on the bridge. They have a little moment, and Pike says she looks as good as I remember, to where number one tells him,
all major systems are back online, and we'll have no more holographic communications. Ever.
And that is supposed to be why we never see holograms again on the Enterprise. As if the fact that Control could create holograms is the reason why they stopped using holographic communication for 150 years. Because clearly a computer sophisticated enough to create a 3D hologram of a human being would be incapable of creating a 2D image of a human being. Even though they did it already, because they created the fake video of Spock killing his doctors. That was a Control Section 31 faked video made of holograms. So there's clearly no advantage to not using holograms. No sense. Always comes back to Discovery making no sense. So Pike and the other people, they're on the bridge, like a combined Enterprise and Discovery crew, both on the bridge. They're all looking around because it is now a few minutes to the destruction of Discovery, and Pike sends the final confirmation code to auto-destruct Discovery, and the computer starts counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Error or something. Nothing happens. The Discovery doesn't blow up. To no one's surprise, the Discovery does not blow up. So Captain Pike says, photon torpedoes. Okay, you know what? That seems reasonable. Something went wrong. Saru screwed up somewhere. We'll just destroy it the old-fashioned way. But, of course, no, that's not going to work, Captain Pike, because Michael Burnham didn't come up with the idea. So he sends the photon torpedoes, and they are perfectly absorbed by Discovery's shields. For the first time, a Federation ship gets hit by 2 photon torpedoes with absolutely zero visible damage, even with the shields up. Okay, fine. So then Pike says, shoot more. Shoot more. Even though the shields are up. Even though, if you know anything about fighting with starships, if the shields are up, you use the phasers, because the phasers drain the shields. And it's only then that you use the photon torpedoes, once the shields are down. But no, Captain Pike has never issued an order to fire phasers in his life, apparently. He just likes photon torpedoes. So he sends more torpedoes, even though they should be saving their torpedoes for the big battle about to come with Section 31 ships. And no, the extra torpedoes still do nothing. And it's at that point Michael Burnham has again flashes into the future because she had grabbed the blue time crystal a few minutes before, and she sees that the battle comes and everybody dies, and no, this is not good. So then apparently Michael Burnham goes back to the past, and we actually see her. She wakes up almost like this is a Twilight Zone episode. She wakes up not when we thought she would have, not after Pike fired the torpedoes, but right before Pike was going to fire the first set of torpedoes. Michael Burnham comes back to the past, and she yells out, "Stop!" And everybody looks at her. And for the first time,
Excuse me, Captain.
Michael actually apologizes for cutting off Captain Pike, because we know she's been cutting off Pike since he got aboard the ship. But this time she actually says, "Sorry, Captain. But it's not going to work. It's not going to work. We should have anticipated that the sphere data is integrated into Discovery, and it's going to use its shields, and it's not going to let us destroy it." And they're like, "You seem certain." And she's like, "I am." Nobody presses as to how she's so certain, because she's Michael Burnham. Michael Burnham. One of the things that Michael Burnham saw in that future was Leland beaming onto the bridge of Discovery with a phaser rifle, and the first two people he shoots are the only two people with phasers on the bridge, and that's the the Bazan security chief that was formerly of Enterprise, who asked to stay on Discovery, and Georgiou and the Barzan. The only two armed people are the first two people he shoots. Everyone else on the Discovery bridge is completely unarmed, and he is just shooting. He looks like it brought up the videos of the various mass shooters we've seen, where somebody comes into a school or a mall or someplace that guns are banned, so they know they're the only person with a gun, and they can just shoot everybody else because nobody can shoot back. And if this was a mall or a public square, maybe, but this is a military vessel about to go into combat, where they know 100% the goal of the enemy is to board their ship and get the data. Before this battle ever began, every Starfleet officer on that ship should have had a phaser on their side. They all should have been armed. Okay? You're going into battle. The enemy wants to board your ship. Just because you're the ops officer or the science officer or communications officer, whatever, you are all going to be armed. You might not be armed, day-to-day stuff, but going into battle, you all damn well should have been armed. None of them were, and they were all shot down like fish in a barrel. They were trying to hide behind consoles and things, and it was Leland was like boom, 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 boom. Oh, he only had one gun. Then he tosses the big gun and takes out the little gun, because then he picks up Michael, who of course is the last person surviving, picks her up by the neck, like Robot Chick had done to her. And I guess that's what, I don't know, maybe Michael enjoys being choked and she requests, maybe the actress enjoys being quote, and she requests that people pick her up by the neck for these scenes. But yes, once again, she's being held by the neck, and like her body is struggling. And Leland takes out the small phaser, puts it to her head while he's holding her with one hand. Okay, let's say he's holding her with one hand. Now my fingers don't work, but let's say this is the phaser, and he says goodbye, and we see the orange glow of the phaser, and that's when the dream or the future sequence ends. But he shoots her to kill in the head, holding her with his own hand. Now I guess since he is control nanobots, that phaser won't kill him too. But that is like literally shooting someone in the head while you've got their hand behind their skull, and a bullet that would otherwise go through them. That just seems stupid. But yeah, so we actually did get to see Michael Burnham die, technically, again. So that was kind of a high point. Like, yay, Leland, you finally put an end to this mess. But no, that was a future that Michael could change. So they realize they can't delete the data, and they cannot destroy Discovery. And the genius Admiral Cromwell says, even if you jump away, Control won't stop coming after you. Genius Admiral. So the F what? Jump away. They can jump anywhere in the universe. Possibly 2 universes. Possibly millions of universes. But they can certainly jump anywhere in the galaxy. That's easy. They could easily jump to another galaxy. They could, but let's just say they were, for some reason, limited to jumping within the Milky Way, which we were already told they are not. That's just as easy for them to jump to the other side of the universe as it is to jump from Earth to Kronos. So fine. So let's just say they jumped to a random sector in the Delta Quadrant or the Gamma Quadrant. We would know it would take Control 150 or more years to get to them. Okay? That is plenty of time for them to figure out what to do. Okay? That is plenty of time. In fact, if they just jumped out of sensor range, which we have to assume that even in the 24th century and the 25th century, they did not have sensors that could sense what was going on across the galaxy. So if they just jumped, say, 50% of the way to the Delta Quadrant, say, okay, that's clearly out of Federation sensor range. That's it. Control has lost them. There is no way to follow the spore drive. It doesn't leave a trail like warp drive. So that's it. You jump 50 years away from the Federation, and you can have all the time you need to figure out your plan, to stash Discovery somewhere. Maybe you want to bury it on a ice planet or something. I don't know what, but you have all the time in the world. You literally can choose the time that Control maybe ever finds you, and more than likely they would never find you, right? I mean, you have an entire galaxy. If you really jumped the ship too far away and then you guys just started living on the planet or whatever and lived out the rest of your lives and made a colony and lived and died there, Control is never ever going to find you. It's done, and it's you don't even have to kill yourselves. Of course, these people, they were never really going to kill themselves to begin with, because they wanted to destroy the ship but evacuate to Enterprise. Every other Star Trek where they've had to destroy the ship, you know what? They were all going to die with the ship. These people are, I don't want to call them scared, but they're not ready to make that ultimate sacrifice. Also, no matter what happens, Captain Pike, if we are to believe last week's story, Captain Pike has the ultimate plot armor. He can't die on this mission. No matter what he does, he will not die on this mission. Also, he knows that Control loses, because at some point in the future, there has to be a Starfleet where he is teaching cadets, and there has to be an accident on the ship for him to live out his destiny. Okay, that the Klingons assured him had what was 100% set in stone. So you know what that means. You know what that means. You already know what it means. It means it's not set in stone. But he thinks it is. So he should know that he's safe. And that, of course, they deal with the Control threat, because if they didn't, they would have seen him die by Control. And he just dies in a unfortunate... He doesn't die. He gets horribly injured in an unfortunate training accident. Burnham says the only thing, since we can't destroy Discovery and we can't delete the data, the only safe thing is to send Discovery into the future. So basically, Perpetual Infinity, they were going to send the suit into the future, transfer the data to the suit, which they then decided, oh, you can't transfer the data anyway. But then we're going to send the suit into the future. Now they're going to send Discovery into the future, since, sure, why not have that as your plan A, back in the day, but fine. So, only problem, they have the time crystal, they don't know how to actually send Discovery in the future, which is a perfect time to jump to the other side of the galaxy and figure that out. No. So we're told they have an hour or less before Leland gets to where they are. And now they're in a room, they're in a meeting, all the higher ups, and they're discussing their options. And then it comes to, well, we have the plans for the time suit. Section 31 had the plans, so now we have the plans. So they could just build another time suit. Section 31 had the plans. So it comes up, they can just build another time suit. Section 31 had the plans. Now Discovery has the plans. Everybody has the plans, apparently. They can just build a new time suit, and Pike says to make it tailored to him, where Stamets says, no, we can't. It was coded only for Dr. Burnham's DNA. You know where this is going. Michael Burnham says, oh, well, if it was for her DNA, then I've got to do it, because I have the closest DNA. And no, okay, if you're her daughter and you have 50% DNA match, that's not close enough. But in Star Trek Discovery medical science, apparently it is. Stamets is confident he can change the suit to work with Michael Burnham's DNA, but not Pike's. So, I don't know. So this does mean now that if Michael Burnham is the Red Angel, and also she would have been the one that Spock would have had the mind meld with, because Spock said he knew it was human, and then they did the brain scan and they said, oh, it was 100% Michael, but then the next episode we thought it was Michael's mother, and Dr. Culber, the most malpracticed doctor in the Federation, said, did he say, I don't have an explanation? I am 100% sure this is Michael Burnham, as he should have? No. He said, oh, well, mother, daughter, close enough. His 100% certain reading, he didn't stick by it. He jumped off of it immediately. He's like, well, mother and daughter, they share 51% of their DNA. It's close enough. You idiot, okay? You insult all of us with this bullshit. So now it is Michael Burnham who's going to be the Red Angel after all. And again, okay, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense that it didn't make sense before, if that makes sense. Dr. Culber should have stood by his initial assessment. Another issue with building the time suit, it's made out of some tritanium compound. They don't have any. But Michael Burnham says, wait, the bulkheads are made out of something tritanium. We might be able to melt it down and get something close enough. A lot of mights and maybes are riding on this plan, all of which happen to work out just fine, as you might expect. The only issue is, what do we do with the time crystal? Because I guess that they need to charge the time crystal, and Michael Mother did that through the power of a supernova. This was a legit halfway funny scene. They're talking about how are they going to find a supernova to power this thing, and the chances of finding a red giant are pretty good, but the chances of finding a red giant about to go supernova are almost nil.
So pick a nova and fire an antimatter missile into its core.
We would be directly responsible for destroying all life within dozens of light years, if not more.
Yep.
We're not doing that.
I thought there were no bad ideas.
That's a lie.
That's a bad one.
That was a legit funny scene. It lasted maybe 6 seconds. But now they're getting closer to the battle. So number one, gotta love number one. Number one says she has enhanced all the shuttlecrafts and landing pods on the Enterprise. The landing pods now are in the Enterprise. If you forgot what a landing pod was, they were those glass things that killed the science officer from the Enterprise in the first episode of the season, when they had to use them to land to save Jet Reno. Apparently completely disposable spaceships whose only job is to spin and land on planets where you can't use transporters. They have no way to get back to the ship, mind you. They're just one use. But they are now, the Enterprise must have like 50 of them, and they've all been enhanced with phasers. So this thing that's barely bigger than like an EV suit now has phasers on it. And they're going to be used in combat. I mean, if that was a death sentence, I don't know what is. And not only the landing pods, of course, the shuttlecrafts have enhanced phasers. Enhanced phasers 10 years prior to TOS. That probably would have came in handy later. I guess they got rid of the enhanced phasers. And
Actually, our odds might be a little better than that. I took the liberty of retrofitting our shuttle and landing pod complement with enhanced phasers, and I commandeered the new experimental tactical flyers, assuming the shit would hit the fan.
Well done, number one.
And if the landing pods and the shuttlecrafts weren't enough, number one commandeered experimental fighters. Experimental tactical fighters. So now the Enterprise is carrying a whole bunch of little fighters, plus enhanced shuttles, plus landing pods, all of which now have weapons on them, because you know what they want to do in this 13th episode of Star Trek Discovery, one episode away from the season finale? They want to play Star Wars. They want space battles with little fighters. Little fighters attacking big ships because, hey, everybody loves Star Wars. Everybody wants, I bet they look like X-Wings and Y-Wings and stuff. That's what people want, right? Oh, and number one adds that I did all these things assuming the shit would hit the fan. Right. Thanks. You know, remember, we have to remember that we're on CBS All Access. We can use naughty words. Fine. Very, very classy, number one. So they still need something as powerful as a supernova when, dun dun dun, the fifth signal appears. The fifth signal of 7, of course. How do they know that there's only 7? Beats me. But the fifth signal now appears, and so what does Captain Pike say? They made it back to Discovery, by the way, once they realized they couldn't blow it up. So they're back on Discovery. What does Captain Pike say? Does he say, where is it? No, he doesn't say where is it. He says, okay, let's jump there. And they jump there. And I would have thought maybe off camera he might have asked, by the way, where the hell are we jumping to? Because the Enterprise is going to warp there. So I guess they told the Enterprise where they were jumping to, but they didn't tell Captain Pike. So the Enterprise is going to meet them there as soon as possible. Captain Pike apparently has no idea where they jumped to, because once they jump there, Captain Pike is like, okay, where are we? and Michael or somebody says, it's the planet Zeha. And Tilly's like, really, Zeha? And like, Tilly's like, I know the Queen. Of course, this is the planet from the awful short track Runaway.
Previously on Star Trek Discovery.
Who the hell are you? What's your name? Mihani Ika Halikapo.
Where Tilly found the Queen, who was a wanted fugitive hiding out in a cargo box in the cargo area of Discovery in the middle of the night. And the Queen is a personal cloaking device. At least she did back in the day of Runaway. It was only by seeing her glowing orange blood did Tilly realize someone was there. And of course, her and Tilly got to spend a lot of girl time together. They bonded over ice cream, and they told each other how great they were. And Tilly was going to be a great captain someday. And Poe, her name is Poe. Her real name I can't pronounce. The short name is Poe. Poe is going to be a great queen, and they're buddy. So fine. I honestly, I still can't get over the fact that Pike didn't know where they were going until they got there. That it boggles the mind, but it's true. He doesn't ask where they are until they've already gotten where they're going. It's really Zeha. Yes, Tilly. Pike has never seemed to have heard of the planet before, nor does he have any idea what the reason they would go to this planet. He's like, I have no. Why don't we call the Queen and see what's up? Because he has no idea why they were there. Now, I'm going to jump ahead a few minutes, but for Pike has never heard of this planet. It's abundantly clear. Pike doesn't know this planet from City Alpha 5. Okay? It has no meaning whatsoever. But in about 10 minutes of story time, maybe 5, the Queen is going to beam aboard, and Georgiou is going to give her some snarky comment, and the Queen is literally going to say, One of the benefits of being queen of the most politically relevant planet in the galaxy is that I don't have to listen to snarky comments. In fact, I passed a law. So how is someone a queen of the most politically relevant planet in the galaxy and Captain Pike has never heard of this planet? That would literally be the equivalent of someone in France, sorry Luke, someone in France saying, my friend, he's from the United States of America. And another French guy saying, the United States of what? I've never heard of that place before. And then the friend coming over, and it's actually, like, say it's Donald Trump. And he's like, you've never heard of America? I'm from the most politically relevant nation on this planet. And yet, not the friend that never heard of him is captain. Isn't just some idiot off the street. They are a captain in the French army or something, or navy, whatever. Ridiculous. How do you claim to be the most politically relevant planet that no one knows about? It's a big galaxy, I guess. There's a lot of planets. You can't be expected to know every politically relevant, but they're the most politically relevant planet. No sense. It all comes back to making no sense. So Tilly is saying, well, why? And Pike is like, why the hell are we here? Tilly's like, well, the Queen, Poe, she found a way to recrystallize dilithium. And Spock is there watching. Spock was an eyewitness to Tilly telling them she knows how to recrystallize dilithium, but she won't tell anybody. And Pike says, oh, so she's both smart and prudent. Yes, she doesn't trust anybody with the technology to recrystallize dilithium, but she's about to trust people with the technology to use time crystals. So let me ask you, what's more dangerous? Dilithium, which makes ships go fast, or time crystals, which makes you travel through time? Okay? There is no way you could say that time crystals are less dangerous than dilithium. If you're going to hold the secret of the time crystal. Don't hold the secret of recrystallizing dilithium. If you can trust them with the time crystal, you can trust them with the recrystallization of dilithium. Anyway, what does dilithium have to do with this whole process? Absolutely nothing. It's just a crystal. So obviously, the Queen must know her stuff about crystals. If you're good with dilithium crystals, it goes without saying you must know what you're doing with time crystals. Because otherwise, why would the red signal, the fifth signal, have even brought them there? So that goes without saying. Of course the Queen's going to be a genius on time crystals. Because crystals are crystals. Doesn't matter. The lithium, time crystals, meth, it's all the same. They're all crystals. Tilly says she's sure. She's sure the Queen will be happy to hear from them, and that she'll just be happy she doesn't have to stuff herself into a box. And like everybody looks at Tilly like, what are you talking about? And Tilly's like, oh, never mind, don't forget it. And they do. They ignore Tilly because Tilly just, they've come to ignore Tilly. She just nonsense. She just talks about nonsense. Poor Tilly went from best character on the show to one of the worst, second worst character, perhaps. So now Stamets has seemingly got the title of chief engineer. He wasn't before. Now he is. Stamets is okay. Now remember, Enterprise had the ships retrofitted with phasers. the landing pods and the shuttlecraft. Discovery hasn't done that yet. So Stamets is in charge of all that. So he is barking orders to everyone. He is as busy as he's ever been. They are trying to get ready because now Control has altered course. And of course they're now a few hours further out. So they have a little bit more time. Why don't they just jump every time? They needed more time, but that's too easy. So he has a little time to get all this stuff fixed. And he's barking out orders. He's as busy as he possibly could be. And it is now, and the busiest we've ever seen him, that Dr. Culber, the hack physician, decides to finally pay Stamets a visit after their very awkward breakup. Right in the middle of all this. Really, Culber? Now is when you've got to do it? And Stamets, does he say, I'm too busy for you, you stupid idiot who broke my heart? No. Stamets, of course, makes time for him, and to hell with everything else. And they have this very awkward, they both say they're leaving the ship. Culber is going to join the Enterprise as soon as the Enterprise catches back up. So this is kind of like his final goodbye. And Stamets is saying, yeah, when this mission's over, he's going to move to a star base and something. He wants to get off the ship too. So they're going to be gone. They're not going to ever see each other probably. And they have this weird scene where they finally get closure, I guess, at the worst possible time. Okay, goodbye. Relationship officially over. And I'm calling it, not that I think we'll see it, but I'm calling it Culber is now straight since he got a new body. I think his new body was rebuilt as a straight body. Back to the transporter room. Poe beams on, and Captain Pike goes to greet the Queen. And of course, as always happens, completely ignored, completely cut off. The Queen wants nothing to do with him. She runs to her best friend Tilly, and they're giggling like schoolgirls or more like college girls who probably are a little drunk and giddy. And they're like, oh, and she's like, oh my God, is that ice cream? And Tilly had brought a cup of ice cream. And she's like, yes, and this genius who figured out how to recrystallize dilithium, who they're going to use to figure out how to use the time crystal, this incredible genius says she could not replicate ice cream. She tried and she tried, but she couldn't get it. The secret of ice cream eludes her. Yet she can do dilithium crystals and time crystals. So after a bunch of time of her and Tilly talking girl talk about how good they both are, Tilly introduces her to Michael Burnham, because actually the girl recognized Poe, the Queen, recognizes Michael Burnham as her roomie from the photo they saw in Runaway. And then, only then, does she finally introduce to Captain Pike. And the Queen, and that's when the Georgiou scene happens about Snark and how she's from the most politically relevant planet in the galaxy. So they tell her what's going on, and literally in this big room, and Jet Reno is there too. So you have a time crystal, you need to fix it, you need to charge it, blah 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 blah. She's writing notes in the air. Nobody can see, of course, what she's writing. She's just doing hand notes, but eagle-eyed Jet Reno is behind her, and apparently she's able to make out those air notes, and people are like looking at her like, what the hell is she doing? And Jet Reno says, I think she's doing nuclear particle physics, E equals mc squared stuff. which to be, okay, I'm going to just call it out. I don't usually do it. Anti-Tracker made a big deal about E equals mc squared not being relevant to this. But you know what? Nuclear particle physics, it is indeed relevant, because E equals mc squared is the conversion of energy of matter to energy. And this is exactly what they need to do. They need a ton of energy. So yes, it is E equals mc squared stuff. I mean, it's an oversimplification, but it's relevant. Now, Poe says they need a lot of power. Planck level power. Now, that sounds like a lot, but I remember back to high school and college physics, and I could be wrong, but Planck value, Planck number, is an extremely tiny number. In fact, if you think quantum or quanta is small, the Planck number, I believe, is actually the tiniest amount of something you could possibly have. Now, there are different Planck numbers, like the speed of light is a Planck number, but clearly she's talking about an amount of energy, not the speed of light. And for energy, the Planck number is the absolute smallest amount of energy you could have. Like the Planck time is the absolute smallest fraction of time you could have. So a Planck level energy, although she meant it to mean like almost an infinite amount of energy, that was, I believe, and please someone correct me, I'm 40 years old. It was a long time ago, but I was pretty sure that the Planck power, or not that Planck level power might not even make any sense, but if it does make sense, it's an extremely little amount of power. So I think they did screw up the science. I mean, let's face it, they screw up the science everywhere, but I don't know that there's a bigger screw up of science than there is in saying they need Planck level power, as in a lot of power. More than the warp engines can provide, but luckily for them, it's Discovery, the Spore engine, the Spore drive can provide that power, though if they use it to charge the time crystal, the Spore drive will take 12 hours to recharge. So once they use it to charge the time crystal, they can't jump for 12 hours. Why? What have we seen on the Spore drive that runs on a battery? Nothing. But fine. Quantum. No. Planck. No. Plot? Whatever. So of course they say, well, let's jump 50 hours away so control doesn't reach us for 50 hours, and we've got more than enough time to charge the time crystal, have a movie night, maybe have a dance night, another disco night, watch some movies, write our goodbyes to our families, and maybe have a little R&R before we have this big fight, and we'll probably die. No, they don't jump one last time. They decide to stay right where they are, although they move a little bit further away from the planet, because Pike recognizes if they're too close to the planet that, bad things might happen to the planet, and it's not their fight. No, it would be too logical to jump so you had time to recharge the Spore drive and use the time crystal. Oh, and then there's a problem. There's a big problem. Charging the time crystal with the Spore drive, as Jet Reno says, is like using a waterfall to get a drink of water. You'll get the water, but then you'll drown. Which basically means if they use the Spore drive to charge the time crystal, they are going to burn out the time crystal. And that means that Michael is going to have to make a one-way trip. A one-way trip to the future. And Michael's okay with that, but of course no one else is. So they go up to the bridge, and they explain to Ash and the bridge crew that Michael's going on a one-way trip. the future with Discovery on autopilot behind her. So once again, I guess everybody's going to have to go over to Enterprise. We get a time update. Enterprise is now 57 minutes away, where the Control is only 10 minutes behind them. It's a pretty good thing that this planet they had to jump to, that Pike didn't even ask where it was before they jumped, was further away from the Control ships instead of closer. Because, right, had they jumped, it was a 50-50 shot. Had they jumped to a planet that was closer to the Control ships would have shown up before Enterprise. So that was lucky. I don't think anybody caught that, but that was luck. Now there's a long, pointless scene where Michael says goodbyes to everyone on the bridge except Tilly, who's not there because she's helping Poe. And why? Why are you wasting time? Again, we are not idiots. We are the audience. We are 155% sure Michael Burnham is not dying, unfortunately. Michael Burnham is not going off to the future alone, unfortunately. We know damn well just about everybody on this bridge scene, minus Pike and Spock, are going to be here for season 3. So please, spare us the bullshit and just get on with the episode. So Tilly and Poe are working on the crystal, and they have another girl power moment where they talk about how great each of them are as women and how they're going to be such competent people. And Tilly was so happy to see how confident she is now as a queen. And of course, she's like, she only got that confidence from Tilly, and Tilly is going to make the finest captain one day. And wow, girl power, yay, nonsense, garbage. I mean, oh, right. This is where Poe... Listen, I have no problem with people having confidence and talking, and yeah, they were friends. But this is so contrived. It's beyond sense. Nobody talks like this. Nobody has this type of conversation. Especially with someone that you almost... it doesn't even make sense how she got her home. I'm not going to open up that can of worms again. I can't. A runaway was too difficult. Too difficult to remember. Too painful. So Poe... This is where Poe says, oh, by the way, Tilly's like, well, when you leave, and Poe's like, I'm not leaving. Tilly's like, you can't stay. You're the queen. And Poe's like, yeah, but the planet is my sister. If I die saving my sister, I'm okay with that. I can't leave you alone, Tilly. I can't leave you, Tilly. Aw. So Poe is going to stay on board for reasons. Oh no, it gets better. It gets better. It gets better. Georgiou pulls Michael aside and says, hey, you're stupid for wanting to throw yourself into the future. There's got to be another way. And Michael's unfazed. Not surprisingly. Whatever. So Michael starts walking down a hallway, a corridor, and she's facing a turbo lift, and you hear the turbo lift open, and who is it? It's Sarek and Amanda. They happen to find Discovery, even though Discovery has no communications with anyone else in the Federation, because they've said it now multiple times, Control is blocking ship-to-ship communication with Discovery. Discovery has been cut off. Apparently, Sarek has found Michael through the power of Vulcan mind radar, space radar. And him and Amanda decided to warp over in a shuttle to say goodbye. So where exactly are they? How is it that Sarek and Amanda knew exactly where Michael was going to be? They had the means. They couldn't have taken off until they jumped to this planet. And that means that Vulcan just happens to be a hell of a lot closer to this planet than the Enterprise and Control ships were, because they make it well before Enterprise and well before Control. It is absurd. There is no way Sarek in a shuttle was going to make it to the Enterprise, to Discovery, to say goodbye to Michael. That is just an absurd, that the time doesn't work. Distances don't work. And I would ignore it, except that they've already made a big deal in this episode about distances and time. The time that it's going to take ships to get to Discovery are a big deal. That's the big problem with this episode. They don't have enough time. But apparently Sarek is immune to time, and Sarek and Amanda come, and Amanda and Michael have another woman power moment, and Sarek actually asks Michael, Space Jesus Michael, for forgiveness. Please forgive me, oh Space Jesus Michael. I have been a bad father. Forgive me, I beg of you. And Michael says, of course, you are absolved, my son. Now, it's serious. That's what she says. She doesn't say my son. But she says, you're forgiven. And now Sarek can, die happy in 200 years. Although Michael does say one caveat. Just promise me one thing, Sarek, Dad, whatever. Always look after Spock. And Sarek is like, well, of course I'll always be there for my son, even if I have to keep a distance, which is what he wants. So that will explain why Sarek is not involved in Spock's life, and it looks like Spock and Sarek have a bad relationship from here on out, even though Sarek just promised Michael on her seemingly dying day that he was going to take care of Spock for the rest of his life. Yeah, it was very emasculating to see Sarek, who needs to apologize to no one for anything, beg Michael for forgiveness of being a crappy father. Michael talks very highly about how great parents they were, and especially to Amanda, and Amanda is especially Amanda and Michael make up 80% of this conversation, and it's more, oh, you're so great, no, you're so great, no, you're so great, and then there's Sarek just begging forgiveness. Poor Sarek. Oh, right. Sarek imparts this bit of wisdom. It is the secret wish of every parent our children make right the mistakes we ourselves have made. Yes, Sarek secretly wishes, says every parent wants the children to make up for the mistakes that they've done. So that's like saying, we've been terrible people, your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents, and you've got to make up for it. That's what you've got to do. That's the wish. No. They don't want them to make the same mistakes they did. That I will buy. But they have no need or requirement to make up for the mistakes that their parents made. They're not their mistakes to make up for. Okay? The parent should make up for the mistakes, especially when that parent is a Vulcan who is going to live for another 160 years. He doesn't need Michael to make up for his mistakes. If he feels he's made a mistake, he's got a long time to make up for it his goddamn self. Space Jesus, Michael. Forgive me, my daughter. I have sinned. So Amanda and Sarek leave, I guess, because we don't see him again. And Michael goes to her quarters, and she's watching Dr. Burnham, her biological mother's logs. And Dr. Burnham essentially thanks God, her or him, for inventing the materials that protect her from the radiation and the blood clots, because the suit, if she didn't have that material, she'd be dying painfully anytime anyone tried to time jump And she warns everybody else never to use this suit. You'd have to be crazy to use this suit. Humans are not meant for time jumping. But if you're half as determined as I am, here's my advice for time jumping. So Michael's learning the basics of time jumping. Michael gets called to the bridge. He goes to the door, and Tilly is at the door, almost in tears, and hugs Michael like, oh my God, you were saying goodbye and you didn't include me. And Michael's like, I couldn't tell you. It was too personal. It was too hard. And Tilly's like, no, I need to hug you. And then Tilly brings her over to a group of people in a hallway. And the people, she says, Michael, these people have all decided that they're going to stay on Discovery. They're going to stay with you. They're going to follow you in the time jump. They're not going to leave you alone. And Michael is like touched, and she can't believe it. And she's like, oh no, you guys can't stay. That's not fair. It's not right. And it's Tilly, it's Saru, it's Ash, it's Spock, it's Jet Reno, it's random Asian guy number 1, it's the comms officer Bryce, it's the ops officer Owo, it's Stamets, it's this woman we rarely see, Nilsson, who's the spore drive specialist, and some other people, and Michael's like, no, you can't do this. You have families. And Saru, the absolute worst character that to make this statement, besides it being a false statement, the absolute worst character they could have chosen to make this statement, they choose. Saru says, and I quote, our families accepted this risk when we joined Starfleet. No, they didn't, Saru. No, they didn't. You snuck away and joined Starfleet. You didn't even tell your family you were leaving. They accepted nothing. They thought you were dead. Okay? They didn't know you even. They didn't know what Starfleet was. You're an idiot. Did you forget how you got to Starfleet? And if anyone else had said the statement, it still would have been a lie. The families don't accept the possibility. The families have no say in it. You accepted the risk, Saru. You accepted the risk, Tilly. And you accepted the risk, Jet Reno, when you joined Starfleet, that you could potentially die. You could potentially never come home. Your families didn't accept that risk. Okay, you're going to have family members that are going to miss you. And if they don't get a say whether you join Starfleet or not, Starfleet doesn't poll your entire family and say, are you okay with Miss Jet Reno here joining Starfleet? And they have to get a unanimous yes from everyone before you're allowed in. I mean, that's stupid. So Saru, I mean, as an actor, you would think maybe he has to pick his battles. But damn it, Saru. Why would you even say something that stupid? Say, I'm not going to read this. Have a backbone. It doesn't make any sense. Your family of all families didn't accept anything. This writing, it's Runaway level writing. I'm wondering if the same people who wrote Runaway wrote this episode, which is possible. I don't care, but so then, and now Michael's supposed to be on her way to the bridge, mind you. Everybody, Tilly says she still needs help with the time crystal. So everybody except Michael Burnham and Ash get in the turbo lift and go help Tilly with the time crystal. Tilly says something like the time crystal isn't charging as fast as it needs to be, or something. So Ash literally pulls Michael by the arm into a room. And Ash is looking at Michael, and Michael's like, you're not coming, are you? And Ash is like, I wish I could, but, you know, I'm needed here. I've got to, you know, I've got to make sure Section 31 never becomes Section 31-ish again. I've got to make sure that Control never comes back. So I've got to stay, Michael. I'm too important to leave. And Michael, of course, she's sad and goes to leave, but of course runs back, and they have this smoochy kissy moment, the last kiss goodbye. So Ash was lying when he was in that group where Tilly said, we're all staying with you. Ash knew he wasn't staying, but whatever. Ash is Section 31. He can lie, doesn't matter. So Ash is not going with her to the future. At least that's what we're told as of this time. In fact, he doesn't go. So now we get a scene where all the crew, at least the crew that's going with Michael, which is basically everyone on Discovery, is writing a final goodbye to their families. You know, I guess they're going to transmit it. They're not writing, they're recording a final goodbye to their families. And I guess they're going to transmit it before they leave. It's slow, it's boring. I don't care. None of them have touching goodbyes. So Burnham finally gets to the bridge, and Pike says it's time. And this is when he also backs the Discovery away from the planet Zehaya, because he doesn't want them to get destroyed. And Saru is like, the Queen hasn't left the ship, because nobody told Pike that the Queen was staying on, or Saru apparently. So Saru is like, the Queen hasn't left yet, and Pike's like, well, we'll have to deal with that later. The Enterprise warps in, and now Pike is giving a speech to everyone, his goodbye speech, because now he's going to go command the Enterprise, as it's actually his ship. And he says a general something to everyone, and then he goes to Michael Burnham, because she's extra special, and he has to make a special thanks to her. And he thanks Captain Pike, thanks Michael Burnham for the privilege of commanding her. Now, he thanks her for the privilege of being there while she discovers who she is. Thank you, Michael Burnham. Thank you for allowing me to be your captain. Me being your captain has been the greatest time of my entire life. This is literally the shit they are saying. Thank you, Michael Burnham, for letting me be your captain. Poor Pike. Poor Pike. He can't even get off the ship without taking a final bow to Space Jesus Michael Burnham. As Pike leaves, Michael stops Pike, and in what should be like a military salute, they instead all aim their bodies at Pike and put their arms behind their backs and like spread their legs a little, and like they're standing at attention or something. And I don't know. Obviously, I've never been in the military. I don't know if this is an actual thing they do in the military, but it's not something you ever see in movies. I will say that. So either they got something very right, or they just decided that a salute is too militaristic, and they decided to replace the salute with this Care Bear stare stance. I don't know. And Pike does it back as a sign of acknowledgement, just like he would a final salute. And he goes over. He goes towards him, and Ash head over to the transporter room, because they're going to transport back to Enterprise. But we will get back to that in a minute. So now we see Jet Reno is with Tilly and Stamets and the Time Crystal. And they're all in engineering, I guess. And the Time Crystal is charging too slow due to very stupid writing. I'm not even going to get into the details. Apparently, Jet Reno has to risk sacrificing her sanity by staying alone, locking herself alone in the room with the Time Crystal after Stamets and Tilly leave, so that Jet Reno can physically open an opening that will allow the energy to get into the crystal quicker, let it charge more quickly, because now there's only a few minutes before control gets there. But by the act of doing that, she might see her future, and if she does, she might go mad. So she and the bulkheads, I guess, will protect the rest of the ship, because it's very important that they lock her in the room when they do this, because they don't need that radiation going out to the rest of the ship. And God forbid the ship sees their future. So Jet Reno gets a vision of the future.
A non-detonated potent torpedo is launched in Enterprise's hull.
It's remarkably similar to the vision Michael Burnham got. Enterprise has this giant, oversized photon torpedo stuck in the saucer section, the primary hull, and it is not going well. Everybody is dying. So I'm guessing Jet Reno is going to devise a way, now that she's seen the future, she's going to devise a way to get that stuck photon torpedo out of Enterprise's hull or something, because that's what an engineer would do. Now that she knows a problem, she will start working on the solution. And that's when Saru calls a red alert. And it's time for Star Wars. All the shuttles and the fighters and the landing pods and the tactical fighters, whatever, are zooming around outside, and they look like they're defending their capital ships, and they're getting ready for the big bad control ships to come, the Empire to come, if you would. And I guess Georgiou inherited the role of transporter operator, because Ash and Pike, I guess Georgiou is going to stay on Discovery. So Ash and Pike go to the transporter room. Georgiou beams them to Enterprise.
Initializing.
And while the transporter is engaged, Georgiou says to Pike, for reasons completely unknown, smile, just enough that Georgiou knows that he knows where she's really from. And then she smiles. So I don't know. What was the point of that? Did she want Pike to know that she was from the mirror universe for some reason, and she thought he didn't know? I mean, at the beginning of this season, Pike said he was fully briefed on what happened to Discovery. So you would think that he knows about the mirror universe. Of course, he doesn't ever tell Captain Kirk about it, I guess, because it's classified, maybe. So when Kirk goes to the mirror universe, he's never heard of it or anything like that. But we know now, without a doubt, Pike knew about the mirror universe. And he knows Georgiou is a Terran and not actual Captain Georgiou, which still was the dumbest thing ever. And nobody, no conspiracy theorists, nobody says that's not really Georgiou. But whatever. I don't know why, but obviously her telling Pike that she's from the mirror universe, I have to believe is going to mean something in the next episode, because even Star Trek Discovery writers rarely just throw in dialogue that useless. So now we're seeing video from the Enterprise bridge and the Discovery bridge, and the Section 31 ships are warping in, and again the fighters are all around the ships, and the shuttles and the spinning landing pods with the phasers on them. And Michael Burnham looking at a sensor and says, we're surrounded. Enemy vessels armed and ready. And there's like 15 different ships in a circle formation around Discovery and Enterprise and all their fighters, which are in the middle. It's like a circular firing squad. Okay, they're all going to shoot, and they're all going to like hit the ships behind the other side. So it is a ridiculous pattern. Okay, nobody would circle the target to shoot at. That just would not happen. But of course, that's what they did. So they are surrounded. Now it is space. You can move in every direction. They are only surrounded horizontally, grant you. They could move up or down. They're not surrounded up or down. Surrounded in 3D space is not the same as surrounded, on the surface of the Earth. Okay, on the surface of the Earth, if you're in a building and police surround the building, you're surrounded. But in space, and I think they did this in Futurama, in space, if you're surrounded in one plane, you can just leave that plane and go under or over or up or down. So to even say that they're surrounded is absurdly stupid, but what do you expect? So Burnham says, we're surrounded, enemy vessels armed and ready, and the episode ends with Pike on the bridge of the Enterprise yelling, shields up, and Saru getting the last line of the episode on the bridge of Discovery, and he says in the masculine post-Ganglia Saru voice, prepare for battle, in a line that would have made Worf proud. And so much out of character, everyone on Discovery looks at him weird. And that's it. And it goes to black. And next week on Discovery, Star Wars! I cannot rate this episode, okay? Numbers do not exist. In the real number line, the imaginary number line, rational, irrational, it has broken space-time, and the closest real number to it would be negative infinity. But even that doesn't do this episode justice. Stay away. Stay away. That's all I can say. Stay away. Stay away from such sweet sorrow. There is nothing sweet about such sweet sorrow. If you have to watch it for the starship porn, put it on mute, for God's sakes. Put it on mute and just fast forward it. And you can, like I said, there's about 1 minute and 8 seconds of starship porn throughout this episode in 5 and 10 second increments around the episode. They're worth seeing. If you've already got CBS All Access, they're worth seeing. Stay away. Jesus Christ, Discovery, what did you do? Why did you do this? It's punished. We're being punished for some reason, obviously. Qapla, I don't even know. It makes me sick. Makes me sick to even say it. Damn you, Star Trek Discovery. I'm only happy there's only one more episode. And before that, there's Game of Thrones. Thank God for Game of Thrones. Qapla. Thank you all for watching my video. Please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that bell icon. Without it, you won't get notifications of new videos. If you want to visit me, check out my forum at juot.net. I'm also on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Gab. And if you're really crazy, you can send me some money on PayPal. Take care. Stamets is making a recording to his, what he calls his best friend. He then later says that this best friend was the only one who could translate what mom and dad were saying. So I guess his best friend is his sister or his brother. Either way, that is the lame best friend.
Best friend. And you always could translate mom and dad to me. And vice versa. Even though I still don't know what dad's talking about half the time.
Stamets, your dad is talking about push. That's what he's talking about. That's why you don't get it.